peeps and peepettes, it is I, once again, Spec Son, aka B-Spec of B-Spec Productions, here to present, courtesy of thedangerousalliance.com and IYHWrestling.com. That's In Your Head Wrestling Radio for all you out there. This is Spec Commentaries, this time the 15th edition, with me chronicling my experience at the 2013 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Fanfest, which took place between August 1st through August 4th in Charlotte, North Carolina of this year, just about 2 weeks prior to me doing this episode right now, recording it. So I've had 2 weeks to reminisce about it. So I'm ready to give as much information out there as possible in regards to my experience at the event, which was absolutely fantastic. It took place at the Hilton University Place, an absolutely beautiful hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, right, very, very close to the University of North Carolina, Charlotte campus. It's just a fantastic place. It's the third time that I have been at that facility for a fan fest. This was my fourth fan fest, but the third time and the first time since 2011 that fan fest took place. Unfortunately, we had a cancellation of the event last year, so everyone was really, really heightened to be there. Those who had purchased their VIP tickets and were really eager to be in that atmosphere again. For those of you who are not familiar with FanFest or just want to hear me give you a little small synopsis of it, FanFest is basically a huge, and I would even say now, an international wrestling convention that takes place really within the southeastern realm of this country in the United States. However, we've had people from around the world, literally some of my best friends from Japan, Tada, that's right, I'm talking to you, who have ventured on to the Carolinas and gone to the FanFest. FanFest is a convention. It's a wrestling convention that is held annually every summer, around early August or late July or early August, and chronicling the superstars of yesteryear. If you're a big fan of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling Corporate Company that was prominent throughout between the 1930s through the through the 1990s, and eventually transforming into World Championship Wrestling, WCW, you're going to notice there's going to be a whole lot of stars that come here. And not only those stars who are featured guests, you also have vendors who come here too to sell their products, wrestlers who are vendors as well, to take photo ops and sign pictures and autographs, and also shoot the breeze with the fans. It's a really engaging situation that you don't get to see at other wrestling conventions. I've had the opportunity to read about and see a lot of wrestling conventions, although not be present. I'm very fortunate that all the wrestling conventions that I've attended have been the Mid-Atlantic / NWA Wrestling Legends Fanfest, and they're just fantastic. I mean, you meet guys like Ole Anderson, in the past, Arn Anderson, Nelson Royal, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who has signed photo ops and have actually taken photo ops with others. Handsome Harley Race. This year in 2013, Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA from their famous I Quit match from Starrcade '85. I can go on and on. I mean, you ventured into the 70s with the Assassin, the Masked Superstar, Mr. Wrestling 2. I mean, it goes on and on. Greg Valentine, Roddy Piper. I mean, it's over and over again. So many different stars of yesteryear combined on this event over the years. Yeah, it's just an amazing experience. And if you're an old school fan, I say this, and I've been saying this for years to a lot of my friends out there, you owe it to yourself to attend it, especially since I've been hearing rumors and confirmations that 2014 will be the final year for Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Fanfest, which will be held once again at the Hilton University Place in Charlotte, North Carolina. So make your reservations now, or try to make plans as soon as possible to attend one of these events. And after I explain my weekend, I think you're going to have a more gratification in terms of why you should attend this event. Not only will I want to give props to my buddies at the Dangerous Alliance, and it was awesome meeting up with you guys again. It's like a family reunion with Adrian War, Rodney Graves, John Walsh, and also Mr. David Anderson. Thank you all so much for helping make this event very special for me. Just being in your guys' presence. Y'all are friends for life. It was awesome being with you guys for FanFest. And also my buddies at In Your Head, IWHWrestling.com. I'm talking about you, Jackie Jones, the internet icon, Jackie Jones. Dave Van, who couldn't be a more super dude. It was awesome roommating with you, my friend. I look forward to our conversations once again. And also the man himself, Mr. President Clinton. Clinton, you're nothing. You are a class act. You're nothing more than a class act. Sorry that I wasn't able to buy you that drink. We just didn't get our ducks in a row and have an opportunity to do that. But if you do come in 2014, or maybe we meet down the line in the Cauliflower Alley Club, which I'm hoping to go to next year, hopefully we will get that drink in, and I owe you not one but two drinks. And I will be paying for that, of course. But it was great meeting with you guys as well, the ROH Wrestling community. I can't say much more about you guys. I've known you guys since 2007. You are like brothers to me as well. Shooting the breeze with you guys is just, it's like being with your friends at home. I mean, it's just fantastic. And also, I want to give a shout out to 1 Inch Biceps, who was not able to attend it, and also Mr. Flea, Troy Jones. I just want to say, although you guys were not there, love you like brothers, and I hope to see y'all in 2014. And also got to give props to my boy Playboy. Playboy, Don Douglas, you are the man. And a sharp-dressed man by that. But let me get into the topic at hand, 2013 Mid-Atlantic Fanfest. I'm going to give you the chronicles. Just wanted to give a shout-out to my boys out there, but now I want to really dig down deep and discuss my experience there. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into every nuance that occurred. If I do, this probably will be a 5-hour episode, and I don't think you guys and gals have the tolerance to listen to me jab for that long. So, therefore, I'm going to just break this down semantically speaking, and also as succinct as possible, excuse me. I'm going to start, I'm going to do this day-by-day accounts. I'm not going into extreme detail about it. But I do want to give my my discussions out there, and especially you can listen to what I have to say and read also some other opinions and also other commentary, and read commentary about this entire event, because a lot of the members from the Dangerous Alliance did attend it, and they will have their perspectives up on the website. That's right, I'm going to give it again, thedangerousalliance.com. So definitely, I know Jared Paul has his articles on the hot tag is going to be up there, and we're going to have some more chronicling of it. We already did a DA edition, DA radio edition of the episode of the entire FanFest. So definitely listen to that. All 5 of us original members did do that. So this is just going to be mine. And I'm going to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm even going to conclude with Monday as well. So Thursday at FanFest on the 1st, I arrived. And when I arrived, I made sure that I didn't bring a whole lot of luggage. And I knew that because of past experience. In past experience at FanFest, I would bring a lot of luggage and not use at least half of what I had, and also snacks and stuff. Turned out I didn't have a lot of snacks this time, but even though when I brought the snacks, I didn't even eat half of it. So go figure. And I've kind of munched on that ever since I got back here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. But when I arrived and walked right in the hotel before checkout, I kid you not, I see about 3 or 4 of my close friends from previous FanFests. And it's just amazing how although we haven't seen each other in years, 2 years, we look at each other right in our eyes, and we know we have that connection as wrestling fans, and it's like we had never walked away from each other. So as soon as that, we greet each other, and then I walk down not the stairs, but walk down the elevator portion of the hotel, and I see Miss Emily Miller, who is a very, very awesome lady who helps out Greg Price, the promoter of the event, graciously throughout the entire weekend. And she said, "Hello, Brandon," and gave me a big hug. And right there, I knew that this week was going to be absolutely fantastic. When you get that kind of greeting and reception, despite not seeing somebody for that long, it makes the event very worthwhile. So that was a great start to the event, and I just wanted to get that out there. We check in the hotel, and the hotel is just absolutely fantastic. Once again, they actually moved me up to the executive level. I was shocked by that, to be honest with you, because I was not preparing for that. I thought we were just going to get the Van and I was actually going to get the regular deluxe room, hotel room, but instead they upgraded us. Same rating as everybody else, so sorry for everybody who just got the standard rates. It was, gets out the standard deluxe room. So this was actually cool to get the deluxe. To get the deluxe executive suite, and we were able to eat breakfast and stuff at the executive level. The staff was gracious, and I just can't say enough great things about them. But as everything settled down and I got my VIP stuff, all my credentials and whatnot, I head to the ballroom portion where the Q&As are going to take place. You had Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA in a awesome Q&A that essentially featured a discussion of their I Quit cage match, what took place at Starrcade 85 in Greensboro, North Carolina. And you want to talk about one of the most brutal, hostile, and most talked about cage matches to ever take place. This was the legit first time that these two guys had ever sat in the same room in a specific setting to discuss this awesome cage match. It was basically moderated and emceed, so to speak, by Mr. Mike Mooneyham, who's a fantastic author, who has a new book about Mid-Atlantic Wrestling out right now at Mid-AtlanticWrestlingLegends.com/NWA I highly recommend that you go out there and support him. He is of the Charleston Courier, so please give him as much props as possible. He was an outstanding moderator. And you had Mr. Bob Caudle, who was the, I want to say, Masters of Ceremony, but he was basically introducing both guys to the crowd, and he was your official host is what I would actually call it. But it was great seeing Bob again. He's in great spirits despite his age, and he continues to come to these events, and the fans respect him for showing up and also showing his face and just using that awesome Bob Caudle voice that you all used to listen to on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling back in the 70s and 80s. But without me going on a tangent, I just want to say that Tully and Magnum really discussed not only the nuances of that match based on the questions that they were asked, but I learned a whole lot about both guys. I came away from that Q&A with two perspectives. One, Tully and Magnum respect the hell out of each other. They fought each other a whole lot in their career, wrestled each other a whole lot, learned a whole lot about the business, about their career, have extreme similarities when it comes to the formation and the exodus of their careers in professional wrestling. Both of their careers ended very soon, probably sooner than they thought, with Tully's being mostly on the base of him trying to find himself after not receiving a contract, after turning down a lesser contract from World Championship Wrestling after failing a drug test in 1989, after leaving the WWF at the time, /WWE. And of course, you had Magnum TA, who was in that horrific car accident after wrestling a show at the Greenville Memorial Auditorium, about to head back to Charlotte in October 1986. He's on the precipice, folks, of not only regaining the United States Heavyweight Championship from Nikita Koloff, but possibly, and heavily rumored, winning the World's Heavyweight Championship of the National Wrestling Alliance from Nature Boy Ric Flair at Starrcade 86. He's driving his Porsche. It's wet. It's extremely wet. He hits a pole, wraps around the pole, his Porsche, and it just crushes the Porsche and it darn near crushed him, but he had the perseverance, the soul, the determination, and the heart to not only survive that, but by the grace of God, he is able to walk again, in which no one thought was possible except for Magnum TA and the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ up above. So that right there set a very good tone, but a very surreal tone to the entire proceedings. Fans were able to ask these guys questions. I was one of the guys that did ask a question. I remember asking them about, did you guys receive any praise in the backstage area after the event? And of course, Magnum won the event with an awesome, and totally never said I quit, but referee Earl Hebner rung the bell because totally said yes, yes, yes. But I just wanted to know what occurred in the backstage area. So when I asked Magnum and Tully this, Tully said, of course, you know, you had your heels and you had your baby faces, and back in those days, it really wasn't courtesy to go up to the wrestler and say, man, y'all had a great match, this and that. It was just business as usual. It's like, hey, we expect you guys to have a great match, draw a big house, and, you know, you did your job. Magnum said that he got a call from Dusty, and Dusty, of course, was booking the company at the time, Jim Crockett Promotions, and he had his own match with Ric Flair in Atlanta in Starrcade 85. So he wanted Magnum to come down for the celebration in the dressing room right after the match. And of course, the Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes match happened about an hour or so right after the Magnum TA match, when Tully Blanchard was in Greensboro. So Magnum had to drive all the way down to Atlanta. He missed the ending of the match, and he also missed the post-match celebration, which you can find on the Master VHS cassette. But he said they had an awesome time in the hotel room, and that's where the party continued in Atlanta. So that was his memories of the aftermath of Starrcade 85, and so was Tully. But the second thing that I really took away was the individual and the togetherness of both guys after their careers. If I didn't know this actually coming into the entire Q&A, Magnum TA is the stepfather to Tully Blanchard's 4 children. Magnum married Tully's ex-wife several years ago, and they have twins together now. That's something I didn't know either. So in return, Tully Blanchard is the stepdad to Magnum TA's children. Magnum's stepdaughter / Tully's daughter was sitting right behind me, and I didn't know that during the Q&As. I had an awesome view right in the middle. And you really get to see both of those guys coming together in the form of their religion, but also their brotherhood in the business. So the two things I'm going to take away from that Q&A, and I hope each and every one of you would take a look at it. And I'm not going to discuss every bit of detail of it, but I think you should really take a look at it. If you love Starrcade 85 and you love that match, and if you just love both guys, or you just want to hear what they have to say in regards to the match and also their careers together, you have to go ahead and buy this DVD, which will be coming out on NWALegends.com or on highspots.com. I highly recommend that you go and see it. But the two things that I will take away from that Q&A, the first thing, of course, will be the match itself and the aftermath and everything surrounding it, and the relationship between Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA, which is very strong and surreal. A lot of the stuff you may not have ever heard, and obviously you're probably not going to hear again from these two guys, so definitely go out there and cop that and get that. The second Q&A, which took place several minutes later, was the Q&A with Jim Cornette. Now, Jim Cornette is no secret to all of you out there who know me. He is my favorite wrestling manager of all time. He is one of my favorite wrestling people of all time. And he had a very interesting and, if you ask me, an uncensored Q&A with Jim Cornette. This was the first time that he had done a Q&A at FanFest in which he was not employed by the WWE, TNA, or any other promotion. So he is truly an independent contractor here, and he had a lot of controversial stuff to say. What I will tell you about that Q&A, not only the fact that Mike Johnson of PW Insider, Pro Wrestling Insider, hosted and moderated the event, but you also had referee Tommy Young, who's always the butt of Cornette's jokes during his Q&As at FanFest. To me, it was appropriate that he was there. Those two altogether probably answered 2 questions. But Cornette had a lot of controversial stuff to say. The biggest controversial thing was the Kevin Steen incident. I'm not going into detail about that one either. I want you guys to go ahead and purchase that DVD because it's worth every penny of it. He went on about a good 10 to 15 minute diatribe on, and I'm giving that justice. I mean, it's probably about, I'm not giving that enough justice. It's probably about 20, 25 minutes. And he laid down he basically gave a really good overview of Ring of Honor's core business, since he was a prominent member of their executive committee. And he was also very frank about Kevin Steen and his opinions of Steen in response to Steen's comments about him. So definitely go out there and get that. What I will tell you about the Q&A is, once again, another question that I asked. And I was shocked nobody asked this, because I was deep into the Q&A at that point. I asked Jim Cornette this. What did you think about your storyline with the original Midnight Express, and whose idea was it? It comes to find out that he played a very important part of it, and so did Dusty. But ultimately, it was Cornette's idea, and also it was his idea of the Dynamic Dudes as well, of him managing them. Didn't know that too. So I mean, just to hear all his perspectives about both of those situations was definitely gratifying and cool, because I think the original Midnight Express and the Midnight Express, awesome storyline, one of the best of all time. And then you talk about the Dynamic Dude situation, which to me was a complete flop, but Cornette gives a great recollection that got the whole crowd and audience amused, and also a little understanding about that entire era and the time period in which he was managing the Dudes. And the climax to all of that as well in Philadelphia that night, when Johnny, a fan had wrote, Johnny, not wrote, but definitely wrote on the banner, Johnny sucks Shane's, well, you figure out what the rest of it is. That was an awesome Q&A for both sides. Magnum and Tully and Jim Cornette, fantastic on the mic. There's really nothing else I can add. It's just something you really have to look at to really appreciate how great it was. And those who were in attendance, you know how great it was. And for my buddy Carol and his question, Carol Crockett, your question to Jim Cornette will go down in infamy in FanFest lore. It will go right beside me and the bus trip in Atlanta, and I'll just leave that as it is. Also, on that Friday, a lot of us wanted to go out and get something to eat later in that evening. What we did notice about FanFest is that you have a lot of great restaurants that are around the hotel. The problem is you don't have enough that are open past 10 p.m. Now, come on, Charlotte. Let's get with the program here. We got to have restaurants, and very, great restaurants that not only be after 10 p.m., but we need you guys to be open well past 1 a.m. We need you to be up all night long feeding us, because we're hungry, we've got the cash, and we're ready to spend it. So it was really disappointing in that regard. Probably my only disappointment of the evening, of that night to me, was not getting some food in the late wee hours. I do recall us finally finding a place to eat towards the end, which was pretty good, and it was a great experience there. But now let's fast forward to the Friday edition of FanFest. Now, the Friday edition of FanFest was basically a time in which we all truly had to get ourselves together for the vendors and also the photo ops. Friday and Saturday was basically for that. Now, on Friday, what I recall is not only meeting D'Lo Brown and taking a photo op with him, but also reconnecting with a lot of vendors that I have seen in previous years. And I have to give props out to them right now because they were fantastic once again. Jim Cornette, of course, who always has an awesome booth at his Cornette Collectibles. You also had Dave Milliken, the ace of belts, Dave Milliken, with all of his belts and a lot of his I don't want to call supervisors, but I guess you can say that, supervisors of the belts, slash partners in his dealings with the belts. Want to give a shout out to Mark, and also several newcomers that did come around there who was helping Dave out. So the belts were fantastic, by the way. This was the first time that I'd ever saw the WCW United States and also the World Television and World Tag Team belts of the early to mid-90s. The Reggie Parks made belts and designed belts. His second go-around with making the WCW/NWA belts, which were fantastic, by the way. I have several pics of those up, and I hope each and every one of you would take a look at them. Great experiences with that. Moreover, I'm going to mention Cornette one more time. He had his new shirt out as well, which he wore during the Q&A, and I did buy that. And he was selling those wrestler checks from the Smoky Mountain days too, which was pretty cool. And a couple of one of my friends, Eric from Boston, I'm gonna give you a shout out, purchased 2 of Jim Cornette's robes. Yeah, it was pretty cool. He purchased 2 of Cornette's robes for $150 a pop, so $300 for those robes. And apparently, you know, Eric, he always tells me he collects souvenirs that wrestlers wear or they carry to the ring. That's his vice. Just like belts are mine. There weren't as many vendors this year as previous years, which was a little bit of a letdown because you didn't get those same vendors to bring in a lot of the other talent from other federations during yesteryear, from the WWE to other alliances or other federations. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but the photo op with D'Lo Brown, and also being able to meet Scott Teal, who is the author of several books that are related to several of the wrestlers, and you know, that come to FanFest, and some of the legends who are not able to attend FanFest that he authored those books. I got him to sign the Stan Hansen book that I purchased at FanFest, which is something I really cherish. And but he was shocked that I even asked him to sign it, so that was cool. On that Friday, I also took a picture with Sunny, Tammy Cinch, and it was cool seeing her. She actually looks in good. She looked in good spirits, and she looked to be in good shape. Much better shape than what she was reported. Of course, she wasn't 2010 Sunny from FanFest, but she still looked very cool, and she had good spirits with her. I took a photo op with her at High Spots, and one thing that I will say, which I thought was the vendor of FanFest, was the vendor Randy. He had tons, and I mean tons, of classic WCW, WWE, VHS master cassettes that were boxed and not cut up in half and placed in a clamshell case. He did have that at the first day, but he did purchase some of the VHSs from another fan, looking right at you, Carol, from FanFest as well, and he sold those too. Let me just put into perspective, because I was at his booth throughout the entire weekend. I purchased 21 VHSs from this guy, the original masters. I purchased at least, if I could give you an estimate of how much money I spent, it had to be up to about $125 for all that stuff. And I don't regret one bit of it. I loved every minute of it. They all look awesome. And it's definitely worth. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about him at some point soon on another episode of Spec Commentaries, because he still collects a lot of the classics and he sells them at very reasonable prices on his eBay page. So check him out once I give you that information. But that was pretty much Friday. Friday was really a time for the vendors and also photo ops. I didn't have a whole lot of photo ops on Friday. Those in which I can recall just off the top of my head. I don't have any notes with me right now. Gosh, I'm stumped. I really don't remember which ones that I did have. But right towards the end, I'll just run off all the ones that I did accumulate over the weekend. I had a combination of 14 photo ops at FanFest, and I missed one of them. the American males, which was really a downer. Bagwell and also Scotty Riggs of the Flock. I missed out on those two, which sucked, but I made up with it on the next day with getting one from the Steiner brothers. Scott made seemingly an impromptu visit there, just like D'Lo Brown did, and I got a photo op with him, and that was pretty cool. Him and Rick together. That was $25 well worth spent. I will say that. That pretty much concludes the Friday portion of FanFest. It was really a day of vendors and a day to reminisce with the friends as well. And that's really what FanFest was all about. It was really to really discuss things with the friends and a lot of people you haven't seen in a long time. So a lot of us hung out around the bar. We talked up a storm. And we also got ourselves ready for the Hall of Heroes banquet. Now, the Hall of Heroes banquet, which was basically the culmination of that entire day, was special. That's when we had new inductees inducted into the Hall of Heroes. And what stood out with me about that was the fact that I sat with Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express, who is one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. I was a huge Rock and Roll Express fan, just as much as I was a Midnight Express fan. So meeting Ricky Morton was definitely special, and eating dinner with him and his son was even more special. Excuse me there. And we talked about a whole heck of a lot of stuff. And two things that will stick with me about that dinner with Ricky Morton prior to the Hall of Heroes banquet ceremonies was he lived in San Antonio, Texas, just as my pal Van does, Dave Van, and also he was giving us pointers and tips about restaurants to go to in San Antonio, Texas. I know that I'm going to be going to a couple of those restaurants whenever I visit that location, and I thank Ricky Morton for that. He says San Antonio serves some of the best carne asadas ever, and also pico de grande as well. I had to think of that for a second. So a lot of great stuff from Ricky Morton. I noticed that he was extremely engaging, which for some of you who have attended FanFest over the years, you know that that's not the case with everyone, every legend that you sit with. But I will say this, Ricky Morton was one of the most engaging that I've ever sat with. And he was more interested in what we had to say instead of what he had to say. So he really wanted to get to know us on a personal level. And moreover, I had to say this, being a Spartanburg native, Ricky Morton gave praise to the Beacon restaurant, which is a staple here in Spartanburg. And he says when he was in James Crockett Promotions, he used to go to the Beacon a lot with the wrestlers. So that was awesome to hear that too. At the Hall of Heroes banquet, I wore an awesome top hat. So I don't want to say a top hat. If you want to call it a top hat, call it a top hat. But it was really an awesome derby fedora, 1950s, 60s style fedora, which was off the charts. I got a compliment from Tully Blanchard 3 times throughout the weekend about that hat. So I want to give Tully props for mentioning that over and over again and boosting up my confidence and my ego as well. If you want to check out our picks, we have them on our individual Facebook pages. Mine is facebook.com/bspec, or you can go to thedangerousalliance.com as well, or the Dangerous Alliance fan page on Facebook. We have some picks up too. Moreover, that Hall of Heroes was highlighted by 2 awesome tag teams from yesteryear. The Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Beautiful Bobby Eaton, as well as Jim Cornette. And then you had the Rock and Roll Express and Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, and they all accepted their awards. To me, they were the absolute highlight of the event. But there was another highlight of the event too, which stirred a lot of controversy later on, is when Sonny, who was also emceeing the event, basically being the hostess, Wanted to mention a fellow who became a very prominent symbol of FanFest throughout 2013, and probably none of it is really his fault. That's Mr. David Starr, who goes by the nickname of The Product, but most of us called him The Project, and that fit him perfectly throughout the course of the entire weekend, because he was really a project in all the sense of the word. Apparently, Sunny was raving about her being about him being her boyfriend. She even mentioned that to me and some others at the High Spots table, but never once did the product/project David Starr ever admit this, and nor did he admit that on his Facebook page as well throughout the course of the entire time at FanFest. David Starr was brought into as a autograph signee at the event, throughout the vendor tables and stuff. And quite frankly, not hardly anyone knew about him. Apparently, I'm a friend of his on Facebook. I just goes to tell you that I really didn't know. But he had a very eventful weekend at FanFest. If you want to read a little bit more in regards to what occurred with David Starr, The Product, please visit thedangerousalliance.com. I know my buddy Jer Polk is going to be all over that situation, since he was a little bit closer to it than I was. But a little bit more about him. But that got Sunny a lot of heat, because she not only mentioned his name at the Hall of Heroes, but she wanted him to stand up so that he can get some props. Now, this is a Legends banquet, and Legends are only supposed to be standing up and giving props to, not a young 20-year-old kid who's just working his way into the business. Not for you to give him props. It was really, really inappropriate to even discuss his name at that event. But he was mentioned, and that got her a lot of heat. More on that later. Moreover, let's fast forward to Saturday. Saturday was an awesome event as well. More vendor stuff, and also, well, before I get into Saturday, let me once again talk about the portion that happened on Friday, and it was the special edition first screening of The Good Old Days, The History of Jim Crockett Promotions DVD documentary that was produced I don't want to say by High Spots, but it was distributed by High Spots and actually produced by a third-party affiliate. And it debuted at FanFest, and we saw that, I'd say it was about 60, 70 of us that were in the screening room, and we were the very first people to ever see this, by the way, in a large group setting. And it was like being in a closed-circuit location back in the 80s with a big monitor up there and projector, so to speak. And you're looking at this documentary, which I thought was a fantastic documentary. If you want to get a good education about Jim Crockett Promotions, I highly recommend getting this. If you are a fan of WCW, and you know about Jim Crockett Promotions, but you don't know the full story behind some of the small nuances, watch this documentary. If you want to hear Jim Crockett Jr. admit to his mistakes, watch this documentary. Overall, to me, I give this documentary a 10. I thought it was on point and fantastic, and I even got interviewed after it, as if I was after I was like I was part of the whole thing, like a movie star does after the premiere or before premiere, by the High Spots guys, and I just gave the honest interview, and I said to them, it was awesome, it's fantastic, it was a great historical document, and it's something that every fan should watch if you're a fan of the business. And I really meant that. So go be on the lookout for that. The price is $29.99. I got my copy. It came in the mail. It's a fantastic DVD. I have yet to look at that copy, but it's something that, to me, that is worth watching, and I hope each and every one of you will contribute to that project. There was a Kickstarter for it, and they could definitely use the sales, and they could use your wrestling fandom, so to speak, to go ahead and purchase it. It's available at highspots.com for $29.99. It's worth the buy. Definitely worth the buy. A 3-disc collector set with matches, too. So definitely look on that. Get that. But now let's get to Saturday. Saturday was the big day for me in terms of the photo ops. And I'll just run down the guys and the gals that I got the photo ops with. Baron von Raschke, one of my favorite wrestlers as a kid. I had a very unique picture with him. Moreover, I had a picture with Tully Blanchard with the NWA World's Television title. Now, it wasn't the type of belt that I wanted. You know, I actually did want the NWA World Television title, black leather, but I had to sell it with the red, but it turned out awesome. Moreover, I had a photo op with the Midnight Express individually, with as a team, collectively, so to speak, with beautiful Bobby Eaton, Loverboy Dennis Condrey, and also Mr. James E. Cornette, the Sultan of SWAT. And that was awesome. I also had a photo op with the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, with the World Tag Team titles, circa early 80s, mid 80s style belts, the big gold belt, awesome. Also had the photo op with all of those teams combined, the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, and Jim Cornette all together in one shoot. Had the photo op with Barry Windham and J.J. Dillon, which was also a happening. I should have brought the Western States Heritage title with Barry, and I should have just got a photo op with Barry by himself as well. I regret not doing that. Also got a photo op. I had so many of them. What's another one that I got a photo op of? Oh yeah, the Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner. I didn't mention that earlier, from their booth. And I think that, oh yeah, the Flock. I had one with the Flock as well, WCW the Flock, and Father James Mitchell, had a photo op with him. Awesome super dude too. Just a quick story about James. After speaking with James Mitchell, comes to find out that when ECW ran shows here in Spartanburg, their last show was actually in December 2000, and I had an opportunity to go there, but I said to myself, I'm probably not going to be able to make it. I'll just wait the next couple months and they'll be here. Turns out, of course, ECW folded its operations in January of 2001, but officially went bankrupt in March of 2001. Excuse me, April in 2001. So that was really one of the last ECW shows, and I didn't attend it, and I do regret it. But, of course, James Mitchell, being James Mitchell, just calmed me down a little bit and said, hey, don't worry, kid. You're here with me right now. Let's take the pick. So he was super cool, too. I'm probably leaving out a couple of more photo ops. I had tons of photo ops that entire weekend, and I just really need to... Oh, yeah, it's coming to my mind right now. I had one with Scrappy McGowan and also Tommy Young, two of the great referees of the Jim Crockett era, and Tommy Young, who, in my opinion, the 6-time NWA Wrestling Referee of the Year, which that is legit, voted on by the readers and also the wrestlers, was one of the biggest draws of FanFest in terms of fan response. Everyone seemed to love this dude. And, of course, by all means, he's Tommy Young. He's awesome. So, barring me recalling some other things that I can't off the top of my head, those were my photo ops of FanFest on Saturday, and also some of which that occurred on Friday. But Saturday was really a day altogether of, once again, vendors, VHS tapes, and photo ops. And then also having more lunch at Zapata's, the Mexican restaurant across from the boardwalk, which is a fantastic place. It's the best Mexican eatery that I have personally ever been to. It even beats Corona's here in Spartanburg. I didn't think anything could do that, but it's a fantastic eatery that I highly recommend that each and every one of you will go to if you decide to go to FanFest next year. That is an awesome place. Fantastic margaritas. Awesome food. Everything that I've eaten there, I've loved. So definitely go out there and check them out if you happen to be around the area. After all that, the matches began. And Saturday was the most interesting day of the matches, in my opinion, by far. And, oh yeah, I can't forget, I also had some food with the DA brothers over at Chili's. That's right. We went to Chili's and had an awesome time eating. I was starving out of my mind, and I ate like a pig. I'm just going to say it like that. In terms of everything that occurred on Saturday night, I will say this. There was 2 highlights of the Saturday matches, in my opinion. Well, I would say 3 highlights of the FanFest that evening. One was the fact that they were giving away the Reed Scholarship. And the Reed Scholarship, of course, is a memorial for Reed Flair, who did pass away several months ago. And it was paying homage to a lot of the new wrestlers that are coming in and trying to make a name for themselves and getting the scholarship, which, money that they could definitely use. I don't know who exactly won the scholarship. I wasn't there for the announcements. But I do know that one of the guys that was in the running was the product, David Starr. Now, David Starr had a match against this guy who was basically parodying a Mid-Eastern type project and gimmick, excuse me. And it was one of the worst matches I've ever seen. It had no chemistry, one bit. And the fans themselves were going back and forth, trying to generate some sort of emotion from that horrible match. And it lasted about 20 minutes, and 20 minutes too long, if you ask me. Moreover, Sonny had an issue with Mr. Dr. Tom Pritchard, who was basically doing announcing, and also he was leading the camp in terms of guys and girls training within the camp to compete for the Reed Scholarship. And Sonny kept ranting and raving about the product not getting enough time and not getting enough this and that. And it got so bad to the point where Tully and Tammy/Sonny got in a very heated 5-minute conversation that could be heard across the room. Now, I didn't know things were happening until I looked up, and David and John told me to look up and see what was going on, and I saw everything that was occurring, and it did not look pretty one bit. They were going back and forth, and then Tully Blanchard, from when I hear rumors speaking, that Tully approached Sonny and really chewed her out and cut a 1980s-style Horseman on Dusty Rhodes-like promo on her. And that set her straight, and she was a little bit calmer. I did think it was kind of ironic where we were at the DA were really chanting Mitch, of course, of Mitch Blaylock, who's a fantastic referee for pro wrestling experience, and to me, the best referee in the world. Tammy, while she was in the ring, while we were chanting, thought we were calling her a bitch. And then we said, no, Mitch. And Mitch, of course, was all gracious and everything. And then you had the Ring of Honor ref, who was also refereeing on the card, who couldn't stand us calling Mitch's name over and over again, because the Ring of Honor referee, I'm sorry, dude, but you suck. You just do. You were horrible. And you were missing spots. And then Tommy Young had to come in and try to straighten things up, and he did, of course, to only Tommy Young's awesomeness. But Mitch and Tommy Young stole the show in terms of the ref, so I'm sorry, RH ref, if you complain about it and it gets back to us. Do not be surprised the following day when we are back at it and we really chew your ass out. And we really did. So we offer absolutely no apologies whatsoever to that RH official. Moreover, I have to give extreme props to the Rock and Roll Express and also D-Lo and Doc, formerly of Aces and Eights in TNA. They were the main event of the evening, and they put on a very, very good, believable match. It's amazing how great guys are when they leave TNA, and then their characters just flourish in the indie scene. So both of those guys were really cool to see perform live. Moreover, you had the Rock and Roll Express come out to their old 1980s theme, to much fanfare. And I had to say that I did buy a Rock and Roll Express bandana from them at FanFest. I should have bought the t-shirts, but I did get Ricky and Robert to sign that for me, so that was cool. They were hot, and of course the Rock and Roll Express goes over. They win the match, and everybody's celebrating, and it was just like a party in 1985 all over again. But the highlight of the matches at FanFest, by far, to me, in my opinion, was the matchup between Action Mike Jackson, and also Mr. Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics. This has to be seen to believe. But even if you do see this, I doubt you're gonna get the view that we got sitting where we sat. So let me just paint this picture for you. Bobby Fulton comes into the ring with his sons, and we think the sons are. I mean, this is going to be like a great family moment. He comes to the ring with his sons, with his Jerry the King like tights on, and the kids look all innocent and nice. They range between the ages. I think one was around 8 or 9, and you had another one that was about 11 or 12. And they all are nice with their father, and Bobby Fulton's all nice with the crowd until he cuts a heel-seething promo on everybody. Then Action Mike Jackson comes to the ring, and they go blow to blow, and it's like an old-school fight with a whole lot of psychology that you just don't even get today on your mainstream product, with Bobby Fulton basically chewing out Action Jackson, and Action Jackson chewing out Bobby Fulton. And then you had, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Bobby Fulton kids turn heel. And they start healing on us, the Dangerous Alliance, and all the people that are around our vicinity. And they start throwing wisecracks at us and saying all kind of jokes and mean-spirited jokes. And just, I mean, they were awesome and captivating. There was more action on the outside than it was actually in the ring. And that's saying something. Well, anyway, Bobby Fulton finds a way to win the match, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody, but I think he won the match. And right when they walks out of the ring, Bobby Fulton and his children literally strut out like the old Fantastics out of the ring together. Excuse me, out of the aisleway together, and they go all the way to the back strutting. I have a picture of that. It was one of the coolest things I have ever seen in wrestling. Absolutely fantastic. It's one of those things where you literally had to be there to witness it. And to end and just to add on to that, you had Bobby Fulton's kids versus Ricky Morton's son as the dark match to end all of the matches at FanFest right before they were taking the ring down. And Ricky Morton's son won the match with Bobby Fulton basically selling a punch from Ricky Morton's son. It was one of the best things I've ever seen, by far. And Ricky Morton's son is around 11 to 12 years old himself, and with aspirations to be a pro wrestler. And I'm going to tell you, that kid is as knowledgeable as anybody that I've ever seen. I mean, he was throwing stuff at me about Wrestle War 91, for goodness sakes. I said to myself, this kid is awesome. He's going to make it if he decides to get into business. So, great genes right there from Ricky Morton and also from Bobby Fulton and their children. It was fantastic to be there, so to speak, no pun intended, during the match. After the match, me and in your head pals, we left the premise, so to speak, to get something to eat. And once again, this is Charlotte we're talking about. We went to TGI Fridays, went to Applebee's. They were all closed. So we finally end up at this Mexican, go figure, yet again, another Mexican restaurant, which is really close to Chili's. Matter of fact, it's right next to Chili's. Close to the Key Street, that's the J. Key Street that's there. And right across from the hotel. And I had to say, I'm not going to give that place a lot of rave reviews. The wings that I got were not cooked as well as they should. But it was just the fact that we were able to experience just talking to each other and having fun after the match and finally have something to eat, which was cool because after getting all that energy out, it was like a whirlwind. We had to get all the rest of our energy out there as well. Moreover, that concludes that day, and now we're on to Sunday, the 4th of August. And this is the 4th day of FanFest. We're all kind of exhausted and we want to rest a little bit, but I had some photo ops. I had missed my Saturday photo op with Leilani Kai, former WWE Women's Champion. So as a result, I tracked her down, so to speak, while we were doing the autograph sessions. And she was so gracious. We took 2 photo ops together with my camera, my awesome Samsung S3 camera, which I cannot say enough great things about. I absolutely love this darn device. One of my favorite devices ever that I've ever owned. Love this camera slash phone. And I had the pictures up there on my Facebook page, and we took that. Moreover, I had another photo op with Tully and Magnum TA. I did not get the cage photo op during their Q&A session with all the cage set up and stuff as a backdrop. But I got a photo op with them, and there was no belt involved, which was a bummer. I wish that U.S. title was around. But we looked at each other, gave a good smile, gave a good handshake, and we had a really good photo op, culminating in Tully once again complimenting me with my hats. This time my South Carolina hat, and also my top hat as well / derby. He had to say something. So he's Tully Blanchard. What can you say? He has to say something. He's awesome. Moreover, I spent my last few hours in the vendor's room collecting a lot of VHS tapes, and I was able to get 8 of them for $40, which was a pretty good deal. And I also made my way around the Gordon Soley table as well, and looked at that table, and that table is absolutely fantastic and flawless, if you ask me. He had Gordon's children, his daughter and his son, were there representing him in the vendor booth, and they had old scripts that were written for Gordon, or was written by Gordon to be read on television. So Gordon had a lot of script writing as well. So he put a lot of thought into his opening segments, his closing segments, and also all of the segments that he was with in Championship Wrestling in Florida, and also when he was in Atlanta for Georgia Championship Wrestling. So you get a whole lot of awesome stuff from that booth. Unfortunately, everything that you wanted there had to be negotiated, so I did not spend my time there at that booth as often as I should have. Also, they have Gordon Soley's memoir book too there that I wish I did pick up. The next thing I'm going to talk about to basically conclude my whole vendor discussion, and I haven't really told many people about this because I really wanted to save it here for Spec commentaries. It was my conversation with famed, respected, and very honorable wrestling photographer. There's never been a better one in the business whatsoever. George Napolitano was there, of the Wrestling Eye, Wrestling All-Stars, and several other publications out there as well. Glow Wrestling, Wrestling Beauties, and Ladies of Wrestling. Pretty much every major publication that you can think of except the Aftermax, The Wrestler, and also Pro Wrestling Illustrated. This guy has contributed to almost nearly all, and I truly do mean this, all of the photographs that you have seen in the majority of your wrestling magazines, if you were a 70s and an 80s and a 90s fan of this business in early 2000s, chances are that was photographed by George Napolitano. While I was at the magazine section and flipping over, George noticed I was looking at a lot of magazines that, of course, he not only edited, but also edited in terms of the photography, and not only just the content and the writing, but the photography to speak of. And he was just pointing out all of the different images that I was flipping through. I had a Wrestling Beauties magazine, and all of a sudden Sonny propped up, and immediately he said, "Oh, I know that. That's East Rutherford, New Jersey, 1997. And I'm like, what? Wow, how did you know all this? Oh, Houston, Texas, 1985. What? So this guy traveled over and over and over again, and he's also the author of my favorite scrapbook of all time. It's a Wrestling Classics scrapbook that's appropriately titled Masters of the Mat. I will have that link available on thedangerousalliance.com if you want to contribute to it. But I ended up spending about a good 25 to 30 minutes with George Napolitano discussing wrestling photography. And you could tell he was just overcome with joy to be discussing all of this stuff that he did. And the one thing I'm going to come away with discussing this with him, he told me, I wish I had saved all of my negatives, because he could make killer money on a lot of that stuff today. So spending about 25 to 30 minute conversation with George Napolitano, wrestling photographer extraordinaire, at the magazine booth at FanFest, was something I'm going to really cherish. It's almost equivalent, very equivalent to my time with Bill Apter upstairs in 2010 in the hotel. I should say in the lobby area. Just speaking with him for about 15 minutes about Pro Wrestling Illustrated and some of my favorites. Favorite editions from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So I wanted to get that out there. Also, Sunday was the last night of the matches at FanFest. This was the day 2. It wasn't as hyped. It wasn't as prominent. What I will remember is this pink / blonde black haired dude. Forgot his name. That's from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And me and my bud Rusty were looking at each other trying to generate some emotion. And he nicknamed him Cotton Candy. I nicknamed him Lollipop. And my contingency was saying Lollipop. His contingency was saying Cotton Candy. And we were just going back and forth, which I thought was pretty awesome and pretty cool. Believe it or not, that is my memory of Sunday. Sunday was not a great day for the matches. Gunner / Phil Satter came on board and he finished up a pretty cool match. It wasn't great by any means with Doc, who had wrestled the night before with D'Lo against the Rock and Roll Express. And the match was what it was. It was just very generic with Gunner, of course, winning and going over. Gunner, of course, is right now, as I speak, the current co-holder of the TNA World Tag Team Championship with Cowboy James Storm in TNA. Not really anybody really knows it unless you're a really good big fan. But he was there at FanFest, and I guess TNA allowed him to come in, so that was pretty cool. And Phil Shatter is a staple at FanFest. He wrestled in 2011. He wrestled in the New Beginnings Cup in 2010. So he's a fixture at FanFest. He also wrestled in 2009 as well. So another year for Gunner at FanFest, so that was cool. I like to call him Phil Shatter. And he even said, just call me Shatter. So I just want to throw that out there too. Sunday, I did not go to the cookout that Rodney was having with the fellas. I apologize about that, Rodney. I spent that entire period going to dinner with, being invited to go to dinner with the In Your Head crew. We went to Applebee's, and we really didn't have a great experience there. The blue motorcycles were awesome, but the food, to me, was a little less to be desired. The steak wasn't really cooked as well. And, hey, that's what I get for not going to Rodney's cookout. And I proceeded to spend the rest of the evening doing 2 things. One, getting gas to head back to home in Spartanburg. So I go all the way out in Charlotte, drove about a good 5 or 6 minutes away from the hotel, ended up in a BP that's very stooped down a hill on J. Keys Street, and thinking that the place is going to get robbed at any moment. Going back to the hotel and really chilling out for the rest of the night, just packing up and ready to go. Was able, got the confirmation from David that he needed a ride to the airport, so that's one of the main reasons I wanted to get the gas. Head to bed, wake up the next morning, and say goodbye to Dave, Van, and also Jack, who I filmed an awesome edition of In Your Head, special edition of In Your Head, basically chronicling our FanFest experience that night before, and which I thought was really awesome. Just to talk to them about, all of our dealings. And that is on IYHWrestling.com. Make sure you check that out very, very soon. That's going to be posted very soon. All 4 of us talking about our experiences leading up to that point. But when I leave, I take David to the airport. I almost did get lost if it wasn't for David. For helping me out there. Thank you very much, David. We eventually landed in the right location. We head to the airport, and we're there at the airport, and I let him out very close to the departure. Right, as a matter of fact, it was right in the departure area. And I drive off, and I'm headed right back to Spartanburg. It only took me about I would say about an hour and 20, 15 or so minutes to get back there, and I head back there, and it was awesome just laying back and sleeping in my own bed. So that was pretty much FanFest in a nutshell. It wasn't the FanFest to go if you're looking for a specific big time huge superstar wrestler, and I think you had some people who were just really disappointed that there was no FanFest in 2012, so that it just didn't come. It's not really a FanFest for that. This FanFest was about reconnection with fans, with friends, your extended family member, your brothers, people you just met on social media who are just taking a liking to FanFest and they hear everything that's going on and they want to go. People who are hardcore wrestling fans at heart, especially of old school like myself. And also, if you are just a fan of the business, I think you owe it to enough of that. You owe it to yourself to attend this one that's coming up in late July and early August of next year. FanFest is worth every penny you pay for it. To put it in perspective, I paid $179 for my VIP ticket. I paid an additional $75 for my Hall of Heroes. I paid $244 for all of that. The experiences, it's not the value. You can't put a monetary value on the memories that you're going to create here and the time you're going to have. You won't get this convention anywhere else, folks. So definitely take advantage of it and go to Mid-AtlanticWrestlingLegends.com or NWALegends.com. Put in your stamp, so to speak, on things. Get the VIP ticket. Get the Hall of Heroes dinner pass. Don't worry about it anymore and plan for FanFest. Go to FanFest. You owe it to yourself to do it. You don't know how long these legends are still going to be around. And while they're here, show them you care. Show them you love them. And show them, please, that not only you're a huge wrestling fan, but you want to spread that knowledge to your children, so bring your children over there too. There was this one kid from Kentucky who asked Jim Cornette a very awesome question, and Jim Cornette was a little taken aback about it, how articulate this kid was. Apparently his father had showed him a ton of wrestling tapes from the 70s and 80s, and this kid knows almost every one of the wrestlers from back then, and even he has taken a liking to the wrestlers of yesteryear based on his experience with his father watching wrestling of the old school. And I'm definitely going to try to do that with my children as well, and show them a lot of the old school stuff, because to me, that's the best wrestling. That's the most memorable wrestling. Whether you're a fan of the WWE, or you're a fan of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, or you're a fan of the NWA in general, or AWA, to me, the 70s and 80s and early 90s were really stomping grounds in this business that set up the later boom period that occurred during the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. So if make it a point to come to this, I'm just giving you in this entire, I didn't plan to go on this long, but I knew it was going to be kind of long, hour plus minute edition of Spec Commentaries 15, featuring my experiences in the 2013 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Fanfest. You owe it to yourself to do this at least once in your lifetime. So definitely go out there and do it. I want to say give a very special thanks to Mr. Greg Price, who is the promoter of this event. I did mention him a lot earlier, but I want to get his name out there right now. Greg works tirelessly, long into the nights, every year to put this event on for us. This thing has been going on since 2004. Who would have thought this would have been going on for 10 years? And next year is going to be the 10th year. Whether it be the absolute final FanFest, I don't know. But Greg definitely deserves the props and the credit. So definitely go ahead and email him or shoot him some sort of message if you attended the event, thanks of gratitude. And also go ahead and if you want to email him to get more information about FanFest of next year, do that as well. But I'm not going to take up as much more of your time anymore. I want to tell each and every one of you, thank you very much for tuning in to this edition of Spec Commentaries number 15. basically my chronicling of my experience at the 2013 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Fanfest, which I have appropriately entitled the 2013 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends Fanfest, the Memoirs. This was only really a snippet of all the stuff that I experienced, but I hope it was enough to give you a good generalization of what I went through, and also of all the awesomeness that FanFest really partakes. It's worth every penny. It's worth every moment to spend so that you'll have a lifetime of memories to talk about for the remainder of your life. And it can also be relived through the stories that you told with your children and your grandchildren. So, the B-Spec Productions, thedangerousalliance.com, and also awwrestling.com. My name is B-Spec, aka Spec Son. It's been happening. It's been Spec Commentaries number 15, the 2013 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Legends FanFest, the Memoirs. Hope you all have a wonderful day, whatever day this is. Peace out, peeps and peepettes, and I'll see you next time.